Yo, internets, don't forget that today's episode of the Combat Jack Show is brought to you by HBO's new series, Insecure. There's so many shows on television that show the modern black woman is strong, confident, flawless, sassy. What you talking about? But Issa and Molly are definitely not winning in that manner. These best friends must deal with their own real-life flaws as they attempt to navigate different worlds and cope with an endless series of uncomfortable, everyday experiences, just like we do in our own natural, real-life lives. Shot in and around South Los Angeles, Insecure incorporates the music of both indie and established artists of color and touches on a variety of social and racial issues that relate to the contemporary black experience. I'm so glad that this is about to happen. She's gone from Awkward Black Girl, which was an awesome web series on YouTube that I watched, to Insecure. Issa Rae has been making us laugh since her early days on YouTube, and we can't wait for you to see how she's upped her game for HBO. HBO is big time. Congratulations, Issa. And if you know anything about Issa Rae, you know she'll have you laughing from beginning to end. Tune in Sunday, October 9th at 10:30 p.m. Eastern and Pacific for the series premiere of Insecure exclusively on HBO. And now let's start the show.
Get ready for combat.
No escaping.
Get ready for combat. Get ready for combat. Yeah. The Combat Jack Radio Show. Stand up.
Hey, yo, internets, you are listening to the Combat Jack Show, combatjackshow.com. What's up, A-King?
How you doing, man?
I'm still washed, man. All of this traveling has me washed.
Montreal.
Montreal was such an amazing trip, man. Shout out to Nation. Shout out to Narcy. Shout out to Pop Montreal.
Spoonie B.
Spoonie B. Shout out to Spoonie B. Barry.
Yes, Barry.
Bobo. Who else? I'm glad that you remembered that. Who else do we have to shout out, man?
Shout out to Just Blaze, man.
Shout out to Running to Just Blaze.
Oh, man.
At the Red Bull. I'm so mad that our trip ended right when the Red Bull
started. The festival.
Music Festival started, because it's popping right now.
It's popping.
But we had to leave, man.
Yeah, it was a little crazy.
How's your liver?
I'm good, man. I was moderate. It's the other members of the team that I'm concerned about.
Mena?
I.e. Jonathan Mena.
Jonathan Mena? Bottles?
Yo, his new name is John Cartagena.
John Cartagena. The shades, like, shout out to Corey Shapiro.
Yes.
Shout out and apologies, man, to Marcus Troy, man, because at the last one we had to cancel that interview, man.
Yeah.
Paul 107. Who else, man?
Nation.
I said Nation.
Dirt.
Oh, yeah. Dirt what?
Dirt Work.
Dirt Works. He's a
Yep.
producer, right? You hung out with him, right? You're a better man than I am. But the food was good, man. I got a nice massage at Bota,
Yeah.
which is the spa on a boat in Montreal. I needed that, man. But, in between trying to get the relaxation in, we just got washed.
I was looking for that, but I kept bumping into the wrong things.
Oh, you kept bumping into the wrong.
Yeah, it was
Because you were in Chinatown.
Yeah, it was something else.
A little something else. You didn't want a little, extra
Listen,
pumps.
I didn't come over to Montreal for that. Now Montreal was dope, man. Salute to everybody that the fans, yo, the audience,
The listeners.
It's crazy. The listeners, right?
The listeners.
Our supporters.
Yes.
Surreal, man. I almost had a tear, man. Like they really show us love, man.
Listen, internets, if you have any type of movement going on and you care about your craft, and sometimes you question whether or not you're getting enough love, even though you're pouring your heart and soul into your craft, if you question whether you're getting enough love, man, travel abroad, man.
That's a fact.
Get your passport stamps and just travel abroad, man. And get some of that worldly love, man. It does nothing but make you glow, and when you come back, you're ready for more. You know what I mean? Right. So I really, really, once again, shout out to Montreal. City before that was Toronto, London. I was supposed to be going to Paris next week, in between A3C and Revolt. I don't know if that's happening. I don't know if I could survive that, but Paris, I'm waiting for you.
Paris. Paris.
Listen, man, I'm so excited to have this current guest for so many different reasons. Definitely cut his teeth, in a world similar to mine, in that he worked at the Source magazine as a writer, hip hop writer, went on to do big things in Hollywood, and now, like to me, I don't even know what my first love is. I don't know whether my first love is hip hop or comic books. I'm saying it's like this. I don't know, and I want to have this discussion with this guy to really figure out like what it is between hip hop and comic books.
Mm-hmm.
So without further ado, let's welcome to the Combat Jack Show, Cheo Hodari Coker.
Thank you so much.
Did I pronounce your name?
Yes, you did. It's perfect.
Your name is like, it's hard to pronounce, right? A lot of people fuck your name up.
Here and there. I mean, I get a lot of chill, but you get used to it.
Right.
And, what I do is I don't go out of my way to correct people. It's just that when I introduce myself as Cheo, then people are, oh, Cheo. So it all works out.
Internets, you got to see Cheo right now. He's literally, when he walked up into the studio, I was like, yo, fam really is channeling Luke Cage right now. Is that by intention, sir?
No, well, I thought about wearing my Luke Cage T-shirt, but I was like, nah, that's just a little too thirsty.
What's the Luke Cage with the?
Well, no, because we got T-shirts made up for the crew.
And one is in your bag for us?
No, because I don't because they're all gone.
They're gone.
I had to tackle somebody to get mine.
Right.
Because like the thing was that because we were filming over Christmas, so we what we did was for
Sweet Christmas
for a crew gift. we had the Luke Cage logo, which no one had seen before, and then on the back of the T-shirt it says "Sweet Christmas."
Wow.
So now the thing was because we only made probably like maybe 150 or 200 of those. They're like collector's items.
Right.
But I'm sure it's probably October 1st I'll start seeing them on eBay, and then I'll know who's loyal.
I'll tell you this, man. It must seem like right now during this run, it must seem to you like every day is Christmas.
It's Christmas. It's both. It's like it's Christmas, but then at the same time, there are also times when you're Santa Claus. So on one hand, it's kind of this gift, but then on the other hand, you also are the one that's organizing the gift. And I guess I don't know if Santa Claus and Netflix work together, but they have a similar distribution around the world simultaneously, kind of thing. Where Christmas, in this case, is coming early on September 30th, because the fact that we're opening this show around the world, it just gives us such an opportunity. Yes, Netflix has done that before. But for this kind of show, if you thought about back in the day, this would be the kind of show that would already be kind of hard to get made.
Right.
African-American lead superhero show with deep, unadulterated hip-hop.
Predominantly black cast.
Yes. And then try to do that and then try to make that a success here and then try to take it around the world. The approach in this case is really we're going to go everywhere simultaneously.
Wow.
And so I think the great advantage of that is that, just like you said, hip-hop is alive around the world. And so what you'll see, I think, is an enthusiasm from comic book geeks around the world and hip-hop geeks around the world. And, to go back to your initial question, which do you love more, hip-hop or, being a comic book geek? I never wanted to answer that question, and I wanted to create a show that wouldn't have you choose.
Right.
You could be both.
Right.
And really what's been crazy is we dropped a trailer yesterday, which I think we call the Streets trailer. And for me, it was just like watching that trailer. Like I forgot I wrote some of this stuff.
You were excited.
I was watching it like a fan. I was like, yo, this shit is dope. I can't wait to see this show, man. I mean, you got people jumping off of roofs and shit, and you got Nas playing, and you got like Mike Coulter throwing people through walls and shit. And I'm just like, damn.
I had the fortune of watching the first episode.
Oh, cool.
And what did strike me is, Luke Cage, hero for hire, power man, superhero. But what's shocking to me is in all the press that I've read about this show, no one is titling this a black show for a show that's predominantly black. What makes that stand out from other shows that are quote unquote predominantly black and are black shows?
Well, here's the thing. It's like when you get some of the press, like the first question people ask me usually is, what makes Luke Cage different than, Daredevil or Luke or Jessica Jones? And I just say straight up, it's black.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that Luke Cage is a black superhero, not a superhero who just happens to be black.
Right.
So culture is at the center of this. But I would say that this show is what I've started calling inclusively black. And what I mean by that is that it's a deep dive into our culture without a translator, much like The Wire was. Much like, any good record is, whether it's a Tribe Called Quest, whether it's NWA. But it's done in such a way that even if you're from outside the culture, rather than feeling like, oh, this is not for me, the storytelling is compelling enough where you just accept it and you roll with it. So that's why I liken it to movies, because I'm a huge movie geek. in addition to like that's why I couldn't choose. If you made me choose between hip hop,
It's hard,
movies and comics,
Right.
I don't know if I could really choose, honestly. But the thing is, for me, it's like the movies that I love, like City of God, Goodfellas, even something like Amelie, because I like foreign films.
Amazing movie.
But the perfect thing like with that, it's like Amelie is one of those movies that is if you've never seen the trailer, it's great because you just go into it not knowing anything.
Right. As you should.
And some people are going to be like, "Oh, it's just all these subtitles. This movie's not for me." But then you watch for 5 minutes, and then it just grabs you. And so that's the thing. It's like you drop into a world. I think what's the difference is, as Black people that watch movies, we've always had to do that. We've always had to accept that whatever we're about to watch is not about us. And so this is really one of the first times this has been the reverse, where people from outside our culture are being like, "Okay, wait a minute." Like, that's one of some of the things that I constantly see online is like, "Wait, why aren't there any like white stars?" And people kind of sometimes sarcastically, because this is the era of Trump, and some people just like, "Wait, why aren't there any white co-stars?" I'm like, when I'm watching The Flash, that's not my first question.
Right.
So why would that be your first question with Luke Cage? So my thing is, it's possible to have a Black show and be unapologetic. What are we apologizing for? But then
what are we apologizing for?
But at the same time, it can be a celebration of our culture without it being, without denigrating anybody else. And I think that's the thing that people find out. It's like, because you know how hip hop travels, and sometimes people from like what always kind of tripped me out is like I remember being at Pasa Pasa in Jamaica, 3:00 in the morning. I'm with Jimmy Cliff. We're like in Kingston, and I mean
blowing some down.
And I don't smoke.
Okay.
It's crazy, but because I'm
that's crazy because you're with Cliff.
I'm basically the only person not smoking, and it's like we're like in Tivoli Gardens, and I mean
Wow.
it's like it's the real thing. And I'm looking around, all of a sudden, like, I see, like, these 2 Japanese kids, like, filming stuff. I'm like, whoa. But here's the thing. It's like, what I take from that is that if you're a fan of the culture, there should be no fear.
Right.
And you'll go to where the source is. And rather than people looking at them and saying, like, what are you doing here? They say, well, hey, join the party. And I think that's the thing that people find, they kind of get very apprehensive about being around us because we've had the experience of being in very hostile environments, but we are not hostile in that way. We constantly accept people from outside of our culture and say, come on in. And I think that's the thing in terms of how this show can really cross over is that there's nowhere to cross. Either, you're down or you're not. Either you like the stuff or you don't. We're not going to really pander to make you like it. We're just going to present ourselves as we are, and hopefully you like it, because what we've come up with I think is really fun.
It's amazing the timing of this show, because when you look at the news reports and you're looking at all these state-sanctioned killings by police of Black men, never has there been reportedly such a high fear of the Black man as there is today.
Yeah. And
then here you have Luke Cage, like the archetype of what everybody fears. When you were putting this together, man, were like the surrounding political events of what's going on in the States, did that play a role in a narrative?
Well, here's the thing. It's like, this is not the kind of thing you want to be prescient about.
Right.
You don't want to I wish we were played out, honestly. I wish that it was, when people see Black men getting shot, that's dated. That's in the past.
Right.
And
as so many people have said before, right before like the age of Eric Garner.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really the most painful thing about it is that, it wasn't even trying to invoke a present or a future. It's really in dealing with the past. Because the other question that constantly gets asked is, is Luke Cage the first woke Black superhero? Or is this really a Black Lives Matter, comic book hero?
Yeah.
Thing about it is that all of our art has always been to prove our humanity and the fact that we matter. And so
all of it, right?
All of it. So I mean, if you're
from
talking
like day one, right?
Yeah, if you're talking about James Baldwin, if you're talking about Zora Neale Hurston, if you're talking about like even back to what Duke Ellington was doing with some of the more experimental like librettos, there's always been that undercurrent. James. I mean, really, like even like Chester Himes in terms of with Coffinet and Gravedigger Jones. Even though those are supposed to be like these pot boilers, there's always a certain element that talks about, that search for trying to prove that our lives are as equal as to anyone else and aren't cheap.
Right.
The literature of Richard Wright. I mean, it's always been there, and so they didn't have the technology back then, so there was no hashtag. I think the thing about a hashtag is that because of the way that Twitter works and everyone's connected, all of a sudden it makes people think about it in ways that they haven't really thought about it before. But you could really say that Black Lives Matter has been a continuum really always for the 20th and 21st centuries. So I don't try to put that kind of pressure on the show. I'm just trying to basically tell the best superhero story that I can tell. But at the same time, culture is another superpower. Because when you match the energy of Luke Cage with Wu-Tang, then you have something that you haven't seen before. I mean, hey, it's peanut butter and chocolate. It doesn't necessarily, make sense.
Right.
But then, boom, it's like the taste, like it's like the commercial. It's like it's something you haven't had before, in this case. And so that was the thing where I don't really think I knew the full power of the show until Guillermo Navarro had just edited episode 3 with Tirsa Hackshaw, who was our editor for that episode. She's a brilliant, brilliant editor. Initially, when Matt Owens wrote the script for 3, the song that we had in there was Mystery of Chess Boxing, because it was supposed to be him kind of going, putting the headphones on and fighting his way through the projects. And it's supposed to be raw, give it to you. We know that kind of that energy, right? But it didn't quite choreograph right because it isn't like we had playback when we were shooting it. And so Tirsa said, Guillermo and I tried something. We want to show it to you. And as soon as she put on Shaolin Shadowboxing, I said, is she really going to do Bring the Ruckus? And as soon as Bring the Ruckus dropped, I lost my mind.
Was that a spoiler, sir?
Well,
are you up here spoiling the show, man?
It's a semi-spoiler because, when we put out the trailer,
right,
we used Shimmy Shimmy Ya, but we did that to kind of protect Bring the Ruckus. And it's gotten out in little bits here and there where, like, if you watch one of the street level heroes, like the first one that we did with Method Man and Adrian Young and Ali, like you see me showing him on an iPad the sequence, and then he's talking about Bring the Ruckus, and then it's starting to leak out a little bit, but only because we're on the eve of the show where we finally let it out. But it's okay because when you actually see that sequence to that song, it makes you forget about Shimmy Shimmy Ya. And there are going to be people that, because they saw it first in that mini teaser with Shimmy Shimmy Ya, they're going to always associate with that song. But seeing it with Bring the Ruckus, I mean, when you see the full sequence, it fits so perfectly. It's one of those things where you're just like, I just cannot believe that I've waited this long to do this. And, people have talked to me, oh my God, this is incredible. And I'm like, it's not that I'm incredible or that I'm the first person to have this idea. I'm lucky enough to be in a position where we have a show where you can actually do it. And so it seems as if basically all the groundwork that was laid by every show that came before us is now for this moment where we can really finally mirror, this boisterous, unadulterated hip hop with the joy of watching a black man with superpowers.
Right.
And so like you have the perfect music to match the visuals, and that's really the thing, like whether it's using, Wu-Tang stuff or, a lot of the stuff that both Adrian and Ali came up with just for the show. I mean, that's really the thing I'm the most excited about. I mean, yes, this is a drama. Yes, this is also, deep into Marvel. But for me, I mean, this is basically a hip hop version of Lemonade. You know what I'm saying? It's basically like, it's really just an extended 13-hour music video, as far as I'm concerned. But in a fun way.
Right. And timing is everything, man, especially when you look at the history of the actual Luke Cage character himself. Him being a child of a character, a product of blaxploitation.
Yeah.
Like him being written exclusively by white writers back in the day, and the language being stunted, and then over the past, I would say 15 years, Marvel really taking care to really develop that character from the caricature that it was before. Like it's just amazing. I never thought when I first started reading Luke Cage that he'd be a character with so much depth because he wasn't initially.
Well, I mean, you know, it's like what I like in it too is, although I don't want to sound crazy and grandiose because I can't compare myself to Francis Ford Coppola because
Right.
The Godfather to me is the most important. It's my favorite movie of all time.
The Godfather?
Yeah.
Mine is Apocalypse Now.
Okay. See, but that's the thing that Coppola does. The thing was that back in the day when he was a young writer director, when Peter Bart and Robert Evans, who at the time were like the heads of Paramount, they were like, wait a minute, we have this best-selling book, The Godfather, that Mario Puzo wrote. We're doing various adaptations of it, but something's not quite right. And so when they figured, wait a minute, if we can find an Italian-American director, maybe that writer-director will bring a different perspective to this material.
The nuance.
And he'll be able to pull stuff out.
Right.
And that's really what Coppola did with Puzo, not only in the screenplay, but also just the little stuff, whether it's, his father, like doing all the music. So the wedding music is very specific to a culture. The music in Sicily is very specific to the culture. Even the moments when they're throwing what Coppola calls the football sandwich. Hey, Gabagool, hey, you stupid jerk. That whole thing. And,
right.
And just all those little, think of another gangster movie that also gives you a perfectly feasible spaghetti recipe.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I mean, and that's the thing, a little bit of wine, that's my trick, but that's the whole thing is like, I mean, it really, when you can do that, you come up with something that, even though it's fictional, has a slice of real life in it. And that's really the thing that's interesting in terms of our perspective on Harlem and everything else that we do in the show, is that rather than just say Harlem, we want to give you bits of it so that people from Harlem see it and be like, okay, not only are they talking Harlem, they're right in front of Mount Olivet.
Right.
Or, when Dapper Dan shows up in episode 105, you're like, whoa, what's Dap doing in this?
Fucking spoilers, this guy.
Well,
this guy with the fucking spoilers.
Well, no, see, the advantage you have
Right.
is that.
No, I love it, man. I love it.
Oh, no, but what I'm saying is like, so when is this coming out?
This is coming out
We're gonna drop this today.
Oh, man, see. All right, so it won't be too much of a spoiler for you because, since you are in media, since you are worldwide, you have exclusive access to the first 7 episodes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Netflix.
Anytime.
Thank you so much, Netflix.
But what everyone else will discover on Friday is that, even though this is a cliche from the 90s, we keep it real.
Yeah.
Like we really have, as much as we can, the perfect marriage, I think, of the aesthetic of Harlem's history, in addition to it really being a fully geeked out Marvel universe. Because don't get it twisted. I mean, like first and foremost, like I'm a geek.
Yes.
And so my whole thing was that it really had to work on both levels.
Was there any push from Marvel in terms of how real you wanted to keep it?
I was surprisingly no. And
None at all.
What I mean by that, there was no pushback.
Right.
I mean, really, the thing that's really great about working with Marvel and Netflix is that each of us as showrunners has been allowed to lean in as deep a direction as we needed to lean to capture a reality for each character. So I think, in terms of Drew Goddard and Stephen DeKnight's vision of Daredevil, they really wanted to go for a darkly violent, kind of thriller that would kind of remind you of like Taxi Driver and those really gritty movies from the 70s.
But that's still all the blueprint that Frank Miller laid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they really wanted to bring the Frank Miller version of Daredevil fully to life. I think in terms of Melissa, I can't speak for her, but just from watching the show, she kind of wanted to do like a very classic noir tale and a mistelling a comic book story. And so with the voiceover, and so when you watch those elements of it, it's like watching, very classic noir stuff. For us, it's kind of a mixture of blaxploitation with what I call a hip hop western. So it's like you've got all these. It's part Shaft, part Unforgiven. With a hip hop soundtrack, but also beyond that, I mean, we got Nina Simone, we've got John Lee Hooker, we've got Mahalia Jackson, we've got Donald Byrd. I mean, it's almost like listening to Frankie Crocker back in the day,
Right.
Where it's all kind of juxtaposed. So
and timeless.
Yes. So what I'm saying is that they never had any bumps about leaning deeply into the culture. The only bumps you would get occasionally would be like, okay, how does this intersect with these other characters? Because we knew, thank God it's no longer a secret, so I can talk about it, the Defenders.
The Defenders.
So it's kind of what I call the Beatles in reverse. I mean, everybody gets a solo record, and then you come together for the
Right.
supergroup.
Right.
And so each record gets to kind of be quirky and weird. So what I would say, it's like, okay, our record, I mean...
It's like the anti-Wu-Tang.
Yeah. So basically, like, okay, if Luke Cage... what would you call Luke Cage? Would you want to call it Cuban Links? Would you want to call it Bulletproof Wallets? Would you want to call it Supreme Clientele? Okay, so we can kind of be the Supreme Clientele.
Yes, I was about to say Supreme Clientele
of this universe.
Right.
At the same time, if Daredevil is, I don't know, could be cold, it could be Liquid Swords. Jessica Jones.
I would say it's Liquid Swords.
Yeah, Jessica Jones could be Jessica Jones could be Cuban Links. And then the fourth record, or the Defenders, is Enter the 36 Chambers.
Right.
So, but we just kind of did it backwards. But say, for example, if you like one of these young kids that doesn't remember these records coming out during the years that came out, no matter what Wu-Tang record you discover first, one of the affiliates or one of the major records, it doesn't take away your enjoyment of hearing 36 Chambers or anything else.
Right.
In fact, it's a different universe. And what's crazy is that we've always had that kind of diversity in terms of music. So if you're Wu-Tang, there's a deep Wu-Tang universe. If you're in the Outkast, the whole Dungeon family, Atlanta sound goes on all these different directions. If you're into the Oakland sound, you got both hieroglyphics and Too Short. So that's two different kinds of Oakland culture. But you never had that kind of diversity in television. But now you do.
Now you do.
And so it's like we can kind of have this kind of retro 90s vibe for our show. But then at the same time, you have something like Donald Glover's Atlanta, which
I still haven't seen.
Oh my God!
I still haven't seen that, man.
I don't want to get in too much trouble and promote another show while doing this show.
Right.
but that show was dope.
Yeah, I got to see it, man.
But that's the thing that's really great is the fact that you can kind of go in all these different directions, and they don't cancel each other out the same way that the music, hip hop wise, never cancel each other out because you could really be fans of all of it.
Yeah.
It's
funny. I never read Alias, but I'm surprised at how much I enjoyed Jessica Jones. Like, I really enjoy it. And I think part of it was the storytelling and the tone and the pulp fiction aspect to it.
Yeah.
But it was also the visual introduction of Luke Cage. I mean, the shit was perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, and that was what was great. I mean, like, I remember reading Alias the comic, and it's just
people keep telling me I still need to read that.
Oh, that's the thing that's crazy is because you have this character who is a reluctant superhero who drinks a lot. She goes into a bar. The bar is owned by Luke Cage. They kind of talk, and then 5 pages later, they're boning. Boom. And then he like, this is a comic book? And then she's, solving a case and is kind of having her issues. But what's great about watching the translation into the television show is that it doesn't shy away from any of her foibles at all. And so I think that's really what is different about Marvel superheroes on Netflix as opposed to any other kind of interpretation is that rather than hide the human flaws and only focusing on the super, Marvel Netflix focuses on the human aspects as much as the super.
Which is what Marvel has always done.
Yeah.
Like from the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, they've always focused on the heroes' shortcomings as part of their strength.
Well, I mean, and I think that's really what makes television, the perfect medium to really kind of explore this kind of storytelling, because you could do a 2-hour version of Luke Cage, but it's not as satisfying as doing 13 hours because then you can really spend time on what makes him tick. You also get the opportunity, not too many spoilers, to kind of get into what makes a character like Cottonmouth tick as well. And we had such an incredible cast, and that's the thing. I mean, to write stuff for not only Mike Coulter, who's I think the best casting,
best
since Sean Connery was cast as Bond.
Right.
I mean, I think that this. I think
like
Mike Coulter.
Like you physically, you just look at that's Luke Cage.
But that's the thing. I mean, there are a lot of brothers out there that physically can play Luke Cage,
right?
But to have the other turn, the sensitivity and the nuance that he brings to it, I mean, it's like, he's part Denzel, part Billy D. I mean, you watch Mike Coulter go through this whole show, and you're just like, man. And then at the same time, you've got Simone Missick, who I think is really going to surprise people as Misty Knight.
She's beautiful, by the way.
Oh my God.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. She really is. But at the same time has a strength. I mean, she's She's gorgeous. I mean, you know what she reminds me? She's like Pam Grier.
Yeah.
I mean, she's like the.
Who's the one that played Coffee?
Pam Grier.
Well, wait, who? What? Get Christy. What was this TV show? Get Christy Love. Who played Get Christy Love? She reminds me of her.
Although
because Pam Grier was like naturally like black Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And she's a little bit more subtle.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And of course, like in any blaxploitation credibility, I just had shot the fact that off the top of my head, I can't name you who Christy Love was.
Can you find that out, Kim? Please, thank you.
Because the thing was, I mean, that's the thing. Like I was born in '72, so my memories of like blaxploitation were like Shaft, Coffee, Foxy Brown,
right.
And then my Uncle Leon. He used to read Players, so I remember sneaking and seeing Pam Grier in that too. But then at the same time, it's
Jane Kennedy.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Jane Kennedy. I remember she was on CBS. She was bad, man.
Yeah. Always.
Oh yeah. But of course, Penitentiary.
Leon ruined it for all of us.
Leon, yeah. All those movies. I mean, that's the thing.
Teresa Graves.
Yeah.
Let's get a little geekish right now.
Okay.
I've read that you said that the two main storylines from comics that inspired you with regard to your vision with Luke Cage is X-Men's that one-off God Love Man Kills, and Frank Miller's seminal Wolverine miniseries.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, see, what I loved about the Wolverine miniseries, Wolverine Chris Claremont miniseries, is
Did you buy the initial run? Were you able to? So you lived through that?
No. What happened was, I became a real comic book fan. I want to say in 1983, 84.
Okay.
I was
Which was the time to become a comic book fan?
Yeah. Because I was 11 years old,
right.
And I was in 6th grade, and one of my friends, this is a Mansfield Middle School, this kid named Austin Orth, he was a comic book collector, and he turned me on to X-Men. I think the first X-Men I read was probably 173, 174.
Was this post Phoenix?
It was post Phoenix. It's right around the introduction of Madeline Pryor.
Okay.
When at the time that Scott is all in love because he really thinks that it's Jean Grey reincarnated.
Was Byrne still on the book or no?
I can't remember if Byrne was on the book or not. But I went back, of course, and read Dark Phoenix and read the Byrne run and
Did you get to read the Cockrum?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but the Cockrum stuff was that was like giant size X-Men.
Giant size X-Men. 95.
What's funny was this is a funny story about Austin. He had giant size X-Men to whatever X-Men was up to. I think it was 174, 175. He was going to sell me the entire run for $30, and my mother would not give me the money. She said $30 was comic books. No, it's the only thing other than her giving away my Star Wars toys that we beef about to this day.
Right.
But that was the thing, was he introduced me to these comics. Okay, so I had the first 4 or 5 issues of Gru the Wanderer, and I traded those to him for those first 4 Wolverines, which I think was probably a very uneven trade.
Very uneven. And we're talking about a character from Mad Magazine.
Yeah.
And Wolverine? Shit.
But that was the thing, was reading those comics. I mean, like from the very beginning, from the first one where you see him like scaling, like, he's in the Rocky somewhere and he's scaling and he goes against the grizzly bear and he hunts down the guy that, that basically made the bear, that poisoned the bear so he killed people. So he's lamenting having to kill this bear. And then, of course, he has to go to Japan. And then he goes to Japan. And then, at this point, he meets Mariko's father, who just kicks his ass with a wooden sword.
Yes.
Hits
him in the throat. I can't breathe. And it's
the whole thing where, like, you're not even worthy of steel. I'm gonna beat you to death with a wooden sword. It was just
like you're an animal. That was the theme, right?
Yeah.
Wolverine got beat like an animal.
Yeah. And then, of course, he's got Yukio, and they got this whole kind of weird relationship. And then, I mean, it's kind of like, it's basically a spy story. And then at the same time, you got the Hand. I mean,
Ninja.
It's just like, I just wish, if they ever really adapted Wolverine, although I think Hugh Jackman is perfect as Wolverine.
Perfect Wolverine, but I think it might be too late, no?
Yeah, I just wish that they would tell that story. Just that story. Right. Just the story of that miniseries. That's really what every Wolverine story should be.
But Marvel would have to control it.
Actually, absolutely. I mean, they have to get it back from Fox.
Right.
But the thing is that gets me about that whole thing was it just showed me the possibilities of what you could do with a sustained storyline and how many deep themes there were, because you had deep themes about honor and different elements of Japanese culture, in addition to, this gaijin who's basically a foreigner who really is in love with this woman who's not from his culture, and it's basically a story about assimilation versus non-assimilation versus honor versus redemption, and also humanity in terms of whether or not he really Wolverine's whole thing is that I'm not a dog,
Right.
I'm not the dog you think I am, and
Right.
so if you think about that and you think about those themes resonate, and you can accomplish all that within a comic book, and so that's really kind of an influence. I mean, I would say John Byrne's first 12 issues of Alpha Flight were also an influence, because one of our twists, like that one, I mean, of course, if you remember those first 13 issues in terms of the whole cliffhanger with James McDonald Hudson, we also have some interesting things that we do cliffhanger-wise.
Right.
That are just like, I remember just reading that comic, like, I can't believe they did that.
Somebody dies.
Exactly. But the way that it happens, you just like, I can't believe that this happened.
Then this shit short circuit or some shit like
yeah.
that.
And it was right in front of his wife, and then he's just like, it was like, whoa. Like, they didn't just do that, did they? Like,
they did it.
Or another one that I didn't talk about, that's also another influence, is Kraven's Last Hunt. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yes.
Where Kraven the Hunter, is really the first time anyone killed Spider-Man. So he kills Spider-Man, and then
who he's been trying to kill since the fucking 60s.
And he gets him.
Yeah.
And then for 2 months, like, you're like 2 or 3 months, you're like, wait a minute, he's really dead.
Yeah.
Because the next issue, you think, oh, well, Spider-Man's dead. And Kraven is dressed up like Spider-Man, going all over the city, being Spider-Man, and you're like, he's really dead. And then it wasn't until like the third or fourth, issue, I think, that like, okay, he's buried alive. And wait a minute, but like, still, it was just like, I just remember what it was like to be a comic book reader, and
right.
you wait all those months, and you're like, I can't believe they actually did it. And just kind of the fear, and just kind of like the fascination, and the fact that a comic book can really make you feel like that. And so all these things kind of come in the background. You're telling, a different story with Luke Cage, but you still want to have that geeky fascination of being inside of a world and the rules of this world, and just showing that you can have just as much drama within this as anything else,
God Love Man Kills.
Well,
it's
that
probably the most
yeah.
depressing
it's awful
X-Men book of all time.
Yeah.
Well, how did this play an influence?
Well, think about the beginning of that. It's like you have 2 young, black mutants, and they're like 8 or 10 years old.
And they're being hunted, right?
And they're being hunted, and they get murdered. And
this is state sanctioned, or is this like just a vigilante? I forget.
Well, what happens is that Magneto, after these young mutants are killed, Magneto shows up, and the pain that he has for these kids comes from the fact that they're mutants and the fact that he's a mutant. And also, of course, the thing that's interesting about Magneto is that he's a Holocaust survivor. And so
that's so brilliant about that character.
And so when you look at this whole thing, you basically have, to a certain extent, a retelling of the conflict between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, with Martin Luther King representing Charles Xavier, and the why can't we all get along, and we want mutants to basically integrate with society and prove that, Homo superior is no different than Homo sapien. It's just a way of powers. And whereas, Magneto's whole thing, having survived the Holocaust, is like, if we're going to be persecuted and hunted, and we are Homo superior, and we are the next stage, why are we running from anybody?
Right.
And there being that kind of balance, and you're looking at this comic book, and you're like, how can a graphic novel go so deep into all these different things? But
even the political background behind that book.
I mean, but and the craziest thing about it, of course, is the main character who's kind of running on an a politician, or I can't remember the book, if he was a politician or if he was a preacher.
I think he was
it's kind of a mixture.
Yeah, mixture.
He was kind of like a preacher
with political ties.
Yeah, very reminiscent of Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was the thing that was interesting, is the fact that you could have a comic that's so prescient about just human nature and how people deal with this kind of stuff. And I just remember reading it, just being like, just blown away, and it still resonates, because it just proves that you really can go there in a comic book, and then in a comic book series, that you can go deep, and you can talk about a lot of themes, but that you're not being against comics. You're actually, for the first time, fulfilling the full breadth of what a comic book vision is. Because sometimes you have people that have done these adaptations that basically say, well, we're not a comic book, and we're using this as a jump off. It's almost as if they're like ashamed of the fact that
It's a high art medium.
Yeah. But my whole thing is that we embrace that. We embrace the comic book of, the marvel of it. We embrace the blaxploitation of it, rather than not using Sweet Christmas and seeing that as this kind of thing that's played out.
I'm glad that he said it, though. He had an opportunity to say it in Jessica Jones.
Yeah. But we also say it, we use it at times in our show too.
Right.
And it feels, it doesn't feel dated when
Right.
it does it. I mean, it might just be that Mike Coulter is that cool that he can say Sweet Christmas and it sounds
Sweet
like
Christmas.
something. Who knows if people will start saying it again?
I beg you for this one. You got to give me this one spoiler though.
No.
Yeah.
Do we get the yellow silk shirt
Well, let's
and the chain belt?
let's say that
Yes, that means
If
yes. That means
you-
yes.
are a careful viewer of the show, there might be a scene that might fulfill that
Right.
wish of yours. But you have to look very closely and carefully because
So it's
If
an
you're
Easter
not
egg. It's an
looking-
Easter egg.
if you're not looking,
Right.
you'll miss
Okay.
it. But it's there.
I love the clip. I haven't seen the episode. I don't know what episode it is, but I love the clip related to his origin when he comes out of that tank
Yeah.
with the tiara and the bands, man. Like fan bros went crazy over that, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a thing. Charles Murray, who wrote that episode, what was so great about, other than just Charles Murray, just the man.
Yeah.
But what was great about what Charles did was that he managed to marry form with function. So we were able to incorporate that from the old comics, but we did it in a way that actually makes sense to, the evolution of Luke Cage and his powers. And so that's really kind of one of the most important things is form and function.
Hey, yo, internets, I'm really excited about this. This week's episode of the Combat Jack Show is brought to you by HBO's new original series, Insecure. It's a new comedy series created and starring Issa Rae, and it debuts on October 9th exclusively on HBO. Why I love this is because I used to be a fan of like the online series, The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl. Like, like black girls aren't supposed to be awkward. Well, they are awkward just as black men, and this show really captures it. Modern day black women are usually portrayed as strong, confident, flawless, sassy, but Issa and Molly are definitely not winning. Like, these best friends must deal with their own real life flaws and insecurities as they attempt to navigate different worlds and cope with an endless series of uncomfortable everyday experiences. Does that remind you of anybody, internets? Created and executive produced by Issa Rae, the show is also executive produced by Prentice Penn, Melina Matsoukas, Michael Rottenberg, David Becky, and Jonathan Berry. Larry Wilmore serves as a consultant. The comedy series Insecure launches its 8-episode season Sunday, October 9th at 10:30 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, exclusively on HBO. Ray stars as Issa, and Yvonne Orji stars as Molly on the show, which explores the black female experience in an uncliched and authentic way. Shot in and around South Los Angeles, Insecure incorporates the music of both indie and established artists of color and touches on a variety of social and radical issues that relate to the contemporary black experience. Issa Rae's web content has garnered over 25 million views and over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. In addition to making the Forbes 30 Under 30 list twice and winning the 2012 Shorty Award for Best Web Show for her hit series Awkward Black Girl, she has produced web content for Pharrell Williams, Tracy Edmonds, and numerous other notable Hollywood notables. Rae became a New York Times best-selling author in 2015 with her hit book, The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl. You do not, internets, if you listen to the Combat Jack Show, you do not want to miss out on this show. From the music to the comedy to the acting, there's nothing like this on television right now, and it's exactly what we need. Insecure is going down in history. Take my word for it, internets. It's going down in history as one of the best comedies in 2016. So tune in Sunday, October 9th at 10:30 p.m. Eastern and Pacific for the series premiere of Insecure exclusively on HBO. Yeah. Let's talk about this deep, intimate relationship between hip hop and comic books.
Yeah.
It wasn't until maybe about 15 years ago that I really it hit me like, oh shit, like hip hop is like real life comic books. Like looking back at Public Enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Public Enemy to me was like the living embodiment at the time of the X-Men.
Yeah.
But if you're talking to somebody that doesn't know both worlds, they'll be like, what the hell are you talking about?
Well, you know what it is, I think, with hip hop is that hip hop is one of the few art forms where like its rappers have alter egos.
Yes.
And
And
so-
superpowers.
and their own superpowers,
Yes.
which is really their rhyme style
Yeah.
or their perspective on everything.
Or their narrative.
So, perfect example was one of the last times I talked with Biggie. He would talk to me like I was asking him about his childhood, and he talked about how, you know, at home he was Chrissy Poo because his mother was a very distinct Jamaican Jehovah's Witness, and he was very sheltered. And then on the streets he was Big Chris, and so he would talk about how he told me this basically the story where his mom. And we actually, when I co-wrote Notorious, the movie, I actually put the scene in the movie. His mom would leave, and he would, he basically would be wearing whatever clothes that she had bought him. She'd leave and go to work, and then he'd go up on the roof, and then like basically any of the kicks that he had, any of like whether he was wearing polo or whatever else that he got from when he was selling. That's when he would put that stuff on. And it was almost like him changing his costume.
Right.
So then when he's on the street, he was basically Big Chris. And the thing that I thought of immediately when he told me that story, I said, okay, so basically at home you're Peter Parker, and on the street you're Spider-Man.
Right.
And the same way that Aunt May cannot believe that, Spider-Man is her,
Her
is
beloved nephew.
is her nephew, and is kind of how Miss Wallace couldn't really accept that, Big and Chrissy Poo were the same person.
Right.
So when she runs across his drugs and throws them out, and then he told me the story of having to tell his mom that yes, the things they've been saying is true. I sell drugs. It made me when I was ultimately after he passed and I wrote the book, and then ultimately when I was adapting the book into the screenplay that became Notorious, that also Reggie Rock Bythewood also contributed to. I thought about the fact that this is really a story about Peter Parker trying to prevent his aunt from finding out he's Spider-Man, and how he's got these two alter egos, and ultimately it isn't until Big realizes that he can be both Christopher Wallace and the Notorious B.I.G. And right when he figures out that he can be both, which actually in real life was really the last time I had talked to him, he really finally figured out how to be both. That's when he gets killed.
Right.
And because it's really a story about somebody who's two different people, and then really at the point when he finally realizes that you can be both.
Becoming in tune with your full humanity.
Yeah. And so I think on that level, in terms of hip hop and comic books always being a metaphor, you've got that thing with the split alter egos. But then you have people that are just pure fans, like Method Man. Like I've known Meth since '93, and he's always been a huge comic book fan.
Right.
I mean, like to this day. I mean, he's probably like in every Wednesday, like what new books are out, he's going to read them. A lot of people have always been influenced by it in the background. And so I think what's been great is that you can now combine both. And you really see it now off like one of the great things that they've done at Marvel Comics themselves are those all those covers that
The
come
variant
out.
covers.
Yeah, the variant covers are incredible. Like
I'm mad at Marvel
Yeah.
for the variant covers, and I'll tell you why.
Why?
About 6 years ago, online and on the internets, the variant covers were a rarity. I guess they were done independently by independent artists. And now that they're done by Marvel, it's almost like, oh man, like the variant covers are like a sellout of that marriage between hip hop and comic books.
But at the same time, it's like what I love is the fact that if you get the inside joke, it's
Right.
great. So like
Black Panther putting on his mask like Jay-Z putting on his fitted
exactly.
is amazing. That one is amazing.
That one I like. I like the Old Man Logan one that looks like Ice Cube's death certificate cover,
Right.
or the
That's a good one.
the Mob Deep, which is like the Power Man and Iron Fist.
Yes.
variant.
That's a good one.
Or I mean, there's just so many of them. But it's like if you get the joke, I mean, it's really works on so
Have
many
you
levels.
seen this mashup of Bruce Wayne or Batman and Iron Man in the Lamborghini, like Jay-Z and Kanye in the Otis video,
Oh, that's
and they're
dope.
they're having a blast.
Oh, that's dope.
You got to see that one, man.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like I think two things are missing from hip hop right now, is just the pure unadulterated fun of hip hop.
Right.
Like when you mentioned the Otis video, that I love that video because it's really the first time you
Jay-Z Unguarded.
Yeah, it's the first time you ever see Jay-Z have fun in a video.
Right.
I mean, like for real. I mean,
Right.
yeah, of course, Big Pun had fun in that, but
Right.
like this is like different. It's just the pure joy of like we're rich and we're rhyming. Like, here it is. You know, and I think the other thing that's missing from hip hop is that people have forgotten about, you know, the medium's power to kind of educate, entertain, and illuminate. You know, because that's really kind of the thing was. I mean, it was like hip hop from our era. You know, it didn't just send you to the strip club. I mean, it sent you to the library sometimes. 'Cause I remember when
Sent you to the library a lot of times.
when I first was listening to Chuck D, when I first was listening to KRS
I was like, who
One,
the hell is Joanne Chesimard?
and that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, it made you look it up. I mean,
Let me investigate this Bible a little bit more.
yeah. I mean, and that's one of the cool things about like when you get to different episodes of Luke Cage, that we have those moments where I know people haven't, you know, might not have heard of. You know, this might be their first introduction into even hearing about Donald Goines.
Right.
Because we have a scene in the barbershop where Luke and Pop are arguing about, you know, whether or not Kenyatta is a better black superhero than Easy Rollins. And they kind of start talking about stuff that I know if people haven't read these books, I mean, who knows if that's going to spark.
Ralph Carlson's Invisible Man.
You know what I'm saying?
In the first episode.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing was I wanted to prove that, like, you could. Like, we're very literary. Like, you know, there's always some cat that you know, even if he's a hard rock, there's also a bookworm.
Yes.
And you've never really seen the depiction of both simultaneously on television. Unfortunately, it's always been like you're either one or the other.
Right.
Or you're always like Flash Thompson beating up Spider-Man.
Right.
I mean, or actually beating up Peter Parker. As opposed to saying, you know, what if Flash could also, you know, was also like quietly.
Like a genius, like just like an intellectual.
Exactly. And
right.
so in this case, you can really do both.
I read that you initially wanted to do Heroes for Hire.
Well, it wasn't that I wanted to do Heroes for Hire. It was that when you think of Luke Cage, you think of, you know, like all the superhero stuff is great, but how am I getting paid for this?
Right.
And when I had the initial conversation with Jeff Loeb and Kareem Zreich and, you know, Dan Buckley and Joe Quesada, their whole thing was that they wanted to do a slow burn of the character. They really wanted the first season to be about the evolution of a hero. And then if you got past that, then you could see where else that could go. So it was about kind of subverting things long enough to give Luke his own arc so that if you were going to bring Luke with other characters like the Defenders or beyond.
Or Danny Rand, Iron Fist.
You had somewhere to go.
Right.
And so I think in the end, that approach, I think, was the best approach. But what's cool is that if people are even thinking about that, you know, now is cool
right.
as well.
Of course.
You know,
are we getting an Iron Fist?
Yes, we are getting an Iron
my
Fist.
God.
Like I
oh my God!
See that to me is kind of the coolest thing about this whole process.
I just had a fan bro nut. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Well, I think for me the craziest thing about this whole thing is that I've had to have all these secrets about these characters,
right.
like bottled up and not being able to talk about any of it. So it's cool to be able to talk about finally about Luke Cage. I don't know enough about what's going on with Iron Fist just to know that what little I've seen is really cool. And then the fact that there's going to be the Defenders is, you know, which I have seen a little bit of just in terms of script-wise. That's going to be a really good one, too.
Yo, fam, the trailer for the Doc Strange movie.
Yeah.
Like, you got to understand, like, I don't think Doc Strange is like a special character. He's not a superhero for everyone's taste. But I just remember being so caught up in like the Steve Ditko, like it's so otherworldly version of like the initial definitive version of Doctor Strange with the dots on his orange gloves and the whole nine. And when I saw it, like my question is, how is Marvel able to win? They have 100% win rate right now.
Yeah.
With regard to the adaptations, I haven't seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I can't really watch basic like network television, but everything else is 100%. How are they able to do this, man? Like Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's, you know,
Ant-Man. Like, I bet cats money that Ant-Man was going to be hot because I remember the Bob Layton Ant-Man from back in the days.
Well, you know what it is? It's like Marvel is on a run the same way. It's almost
like the Lakers.
I wouldn't even say Lakers. You know, it's like Def Jam from '86 to like the mid '90s. Like, it didn't even matter if it was on Def Jam, you were gonna buy it. I mean, like, I remember buying the. You know, I remember I was in the record store. This is how old I'm dating myself, and I never heard of Original Concept. but it was the fact that it was on Def
It
Jam.
had that brand.
You know, I bought
And
it.
he was like, what the fuck is this?
You know, but that was the thing.
This
It
is
was
bad, but,
you know, but
no
like,
shots.
but that was the thing was like, you know, if it was on Def Jam, you just took it for granted that, okay, the quality control was there.
Right.
Like, okay, I'm gonna roll with it.
Right.
And that's where Marvel is. And I think the secret to Marvel is they have a knowledge and a passion about their characters, but at the same time, they're open-minded enough to lend them to interpretation, because what Joss Whedon did with the Avengers really set the tone for everything else. I mean, or even before then, what Favreau did with Iron Man.
Iron Man.
You know, and with Robert Downey Jr.'s whole take and all that stuff. I mean, it really kind of set the tone on the film wise, and then television wise. I mean, you know, what's great about what Jeff Loeb in terms of the environment he created at Marvel Television in terms of, and I think Jeff in particular is interesting from the standpoint that he was a television writer. He wrote on Lost. He wrote on Heroes. He was also he wrote screenplay wise. He wrote Commando. He wrote Teen Wolf, and then comic book wise. I mean, you know, he's done everything from like Spider-Man Blue to really great DC stuff
Yes.
with Batman.
Yes.
Long Halloween, Dark Victory.
With Tim Sale, he always
exactly. I mean, so I remember that first meeting. I think I was more nervous for that meeting than almost any meeting I've ever had ever, because you're kind of in the presence of a comic book demigod.
Right.
But the thing that I found about Jeff that was so great was just how open-minded he was. So he would basically say, well, okay, this might not be the way that we would do this, but other than that, if you kind of could present a compelling case as to why something should be, they let it go. And that was really kind of the best thing for Luke Cage, was that they really wanted something that could breathe, something that could breathe new energy into the character, but always were very cognizant of, okay, if you're leaning too far here, or Luke wouldn't do that, you know, I always just basically, rather than being mad about that, said, okay, let me think of something else that will kind of keep us in that same direction.
Right.
And then with Netflix also has a very strong voice. But what's great about the combination of both is that you have two companies that are so passionate about these characters that it forces you to always be on point. And then also we were just so blessed with the actors that we had, so that really for us, and this is just me kind of talking about this from a personal level, you always were trying to excel. My whole vision for this show was to be able to finally come up with something that could, you know, keep up with Daredevil and Jessica Jones, and the ground that they laid to being like, look, comic book shows can basically be put next to anything else and be the equal, and not be like the kind of like commercial thing.
Right.
It's something that can really hold up. And then if you kind of go back to your initial question about why Marvel is on the streak, Marvel doesn't view their movies or their TV shows as being inferior to anything. If anything, they're trying to show that these brands can be profound and strong and true to themselves, and basically stand equal with anything else that's out there.
You know, I love life. Like, I love every day of my life. I love the greatest aspects of my life. I love the worst days of my life. But you guys have given me an additional reason for loving life. This is the best. If you've ever read comic books, and I'm sorry, DC fans, because you guys aren't really getting what we're getting. Like, but as a Marvel fan, as a lifelong Marvel fan, this is the best fucking time to be alive.
Oh, no doubt. It's, I mean, for me, I think right now, because I'm in it,
Right.
it's like, it's a hustle. It's a chase. It's like,
It's work.
all these interviews, the writing, you know, being involved. Because as a showrunner, like you're basically head coach. It's like you're not coming up with all of the offensive plans, but ultimately you have to make decisions. And
Let me interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
What exactly does a showrunner do?
It's funny. I would kind of say a showrunner is both a general manager and a head coach.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is that, like, our writer's room, when I was assembling the writer's room, the way that I looked at it, because my college roommate, David Shaw, we both went to Stanford together. He's now the head coach at Stanford. And so, following David's career and also being obsessed with the NFL Network. So, you know, me, between gangster movies and the NFL Network, that's kind of all I watch. But when you watch, like, behind the scenes, the way that that a coaching staff works is you have offense and defense. And so the way that I assembled, our various writers, whether it's myself or Charles Murray or Christian Taylor or Jason Horwich or Akela Cooper, Aida Kroll, Nathan Lewis Jackson, or Matt Owens, is dialogue is offense, structure is defense. And so with each of us, like some of us are really good with dialogue, some of us are really good with structure. And the arguments and, kind of the very fun, passionate arguments that you would have, just the same way that if you're watching a coaching room, like you're basically competitive, but at the same time on the same team trying to basically make the perfect team. When you come together with these scripts, they had to work in terms of popping on the page, in terms of dialogue, but the structure of the storytelling always had to be on point. And so then once you get the scripts, then you give it to your quarterback. In our case, our quarterback is Mike Coulter. And so that's kind of the creative side. That's the head coaching side of basically whether you write the script or come up with the offense or not, you're going to be the one to call the play. Even if the offensive coordinator is throwing in a play, you got to say, okay, we are going to go with this. We're not going to call an audible, and that's executed. The general manager side of it is, we have to make these things on a budget. It's also talking with all the different department heads about whether it's construction, whether it's, everything from sound design to production design to, costumes, everything you have to sign off on. And so as a showrunner, you're basically confronted with all these different decisions. And so the only way to be effective at it is you have to trust the people that you hire. You have to trust the people that you hire to make the right choices. But ultimately, it's your fault. So you have to be ready in terms of decisions to...
You're fully accountable.
Yeah, to be accountable and to think about all these things. And so that's the pressure of it, but it's also the joy of it, because when it all comes together, it's something that, you're so much a part of, but then at the same time, there's this weird part where you're detached from it and you just watch it like, man, it's incredible watching everybody, working together. Because when you put it together, when it all kind of comes together and everybody buys into the vision, then it no longer belongs to you. It belongs to everybody that's a part of it.
The team.
And so that's my whole thing about this, where it's like I'm getting, being the showrunner of the show, I'm getting a lot of celebration. But it isn't just me; it's really everybody, and it's all of us. And so the thing is, it's like the show doesn't just belong to me; it really kind of belongs to the entire team. And that's not just in terms of just the physical production or even the writing, but it's also even in terms of the notes that we get, because everyone is trying to basically make it the best that it can be. And then when you finally have the final sign off from everybody, and then you see the finished product, and the finished product is as good as I think this is, you kind of take a satisfaction from that. And so to me, that's one of the most exciting parts of this whole thing. It's just like, man, just being able to step back and watch this thing. So for me, right now we have the premiere tomorrow, and I'm kind of nervous about that, because
Really?
it's kind of giddy excitement, but it's also like I might not even be able to watch it.
Why?
It's just because how it is. It's just opening night jitter. It's like,
Yeah.
I think as soon as it comes on, I'm gonna like leave my seat, because my wife's flying in. I'll probably get up and I'll probably walk out of the theater and just like let everybody have it, because I've seen it so many times. I'm probably gonna be too nervous to even sit and watch it.
Right, because of other people's reactions.
With that, and it's just weird.
Right.
It's just kind of, I don't know. It's just one of these things. I mean, it's like I don't know how to really describe it. So there's part of me that's going to be like, not being able to enjoy it in that way.
Because you're too close to it.
I'm way too close
You're
to
way
it.
too...
I think I'm not going to really be able to fully enjoy it till I'm at home.
Right.
And I'm in front of my 65-inch 4K TV that I bought specifically to watch this joint. I'll be home and crank it up. And that's when I'm going to like be able to like, oh my God, like I can finally like
take it all in, right?
And take it all in, And that to me is going to be really fun. And the other part, of course, I love, because I love getting in like Twitter and Facebook arguments. like I love reading people's reactions, and there's always one hater, and I like direct messaging that hater and being like, well, what do you mean? And then going back and forth. And so for me, one of the fun parts is like just getting to watch people's reactions to the various things that happen over the 13 episodes, and then being able to like debate in a fun way about all of it. And that's what's so great about this, having a show online, and that reaction being online is that you have a interaction with your fans that's different than any other kind of interaction.
right.
And I think that's going to be fun as well.
Right. What's your personal relationship to the character Luke Cage? Because as a 70s baby, I remember the first time I saw the cover of Luke Cage Power Man. I was like, oh my God, there's a black character.
Yeah.
And so that was my initial attraction. And, it took place in Harlem and the whole nine. And even though it was white writers, it still spoke to me.
Well, representation is always important.
Yes.
I mean, I grew up in a family where if you're watching Family Feud and there was a black family on Family Feud, you cheered for it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like when you see, I mean, my initial reaction was like, okay, this is cool. And I looked up to Luke Cage the same way that, like, anytime there was like a Muhammad Ali cover, I looked at that. Or when you see that kind of representation of black masculine strength, particularly as a young black boy like me that grew up without my father, whether I realized it or not, that was important. And seeing that, as I began to read comics, I mean, because this reminds you, like seeing a Power Man here and there. As I began to read comics, I wouldn't necessarily see as much, in terms of like being as moved by the storylines, but there was always a potential there with Luke Cage to tell a deeper story. And sometimes some stories would go there, some stories wouldn't. I mean, what I remember from Heroes for Hire, going back to reading comics, is that there were a lot of one-off stories,
right,
but the potential was always there.
Right.
And in a weird way, I think that this show is kind of a partial realization of some of those kinds of stories. And so what I'm hoping is that in this interpretation of Luke Cage, that rather than seeing the TV version as the denigration of the comics, I hope people read Luke Cage, watch the show, appreciate what we're trying to capture, and then it makes, fans that come into the show, watching the show, make them want to read the comic.
Right.
And people that have read the comic hopefully will appreciate what we've done with the show,
right,
and then showing that you can really do both.
Favorite Luke Cage storyline in comic books?
Well, one favorite, of course, is when he goes all the way to find Dr. Doom, for stiffing him.
Right.
The whole "Where's the money, honey?"
Yeah.
I would love to. I would love to work a variation of that. If we're lucky enough to get a season 2.
Right.
But I'm
sure you guys are going to get a season 2.
Yeah, hey man.
I mean, the demand for this show seems way higher than the demand for Daredevil.
Well, yeah, I don't take any of it for granted,
right,
honestly, because after Vinyl, man, it's like you never know.
Right.
That's
true.
I just really want people to really just watch and just
right,
and enjoy the show. But I really liked what Brian Michael Bendis recently, like in terms of, not just Alias, but also New Avengers, also
incorporating Luke into the Avengers universe, which was huge.
Well, I mean,
with the leadership role.
Yeah, I just think he's natural for that,
right?
And we'll have to see if it ever crosses over. But like we have the character is so centered now in the Marvel universe. I think it's interesting. Like also, really, I loved what happened with Civil War.
Yes,
and I loved how he basically looked at what was happening as a civil rights issue to a certain extent.
Right.
So when he decides to join Captain America and going against this, there's something very real about that. Probably, I think one of my favorite stories was in the Reggie Hudlin reinterpretation of Black Panther.
Classic. Classic. I think that's the best.
Yeah.
Black Panther storyline of all time.
Yeah, that's when he and T'Challa go on the road. Like that was it was almost like a hip hop Marvel version of the Blues Brothers,
right?
Because it is kind of on a mission. Like that was a really fun storyline.
Right.
Like I love that one.
I love having this debate on social media. Black Panther, Luke Cage.
But who would win?
No, who's your favorite out of the two? Like, who do you prefer?
That's hard.
It was hard for me, and then someone voiced it in a manner that made me choose Luke Cage. And the reasoning I heard is that, Jack Kirby, 60s, we need a black superhero, Black Panther, Wakanda, blah, 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 blah. But Luke Cage spoke to my American experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing. It's like, it's the reason that I'm having trouble with that is because if they fully realize Wakanda, it would basically be like Zamunda with, deep pockets and superpowers.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It would be like, it basically would be like the in Earth, Wind, and Fire album cover come to life. It'd be like, serious blackness with technology.
Right.
With the most,
Oh
precious...
man, the parties would be out of this
you know what I'm saying?
world.
So, and the fact that, like, just what that character could represent in the proper interpretation.
Right.
He's always been one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But then the thing is that, like, now having literally incorporated Luke Cage, he's now a part of my psyche.
Right.
So the fanboy in me has a hard time answering that question, but I say unequivocally I'd have to favor Luke Cage from a personal standpoint, because now I take the character so personally,
you're attached to
and I'm attached to him,
yeah.
that I got to be Team Luke on that one.
We're running out of time, man. We didn't even get into, like, I wanted to jump into, like, your source history, like the source and the whole nine. But
well, there's always part two. I can always come back.
There's always part, but now you're so hard to reach, man. You're so hard to get, man. By the way, my favorite Luke Cage storyline of all time is the Heroes for Hire, John Byrne.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, it took him out of his comfort zone, and it partnered him up with Danny Rand, Iron Fist, and just John Byrne's pens, man. I'm trying to figure out what my top 5 question is going to be for you.
Okay.
Is it going to be top 5 MCs, or is it going to be top 5 comic book characters of all time? Let's go.
Top 5 MCs and their comic book counterpart.
Oh, see that's
way. You
that's
don't read comics, man. You don't read.
I don't.
So we got to fall back on that, man.
All
Top
right.
5 comic book characters of all time.
Okay.
I'm going to do both. Sorry.
All right. Okay. Let me see. So comic book characters for me, I mean, and they're almost all X-Men related, honestly. Yeah. Wolverine, number 1. Aurora Storm is number 2.
That's a good one.
Sebastian Shaw, I've always thought was a great.
That's a good one.
Was a great villain.
Right.
As 3. Okay, the White Queen is interesting, and the reason I picked the White Queen over Jean Grey is I remember there was this great moment when she was dealing with Bobby Drake, and she basically took over Iceman, and he was doing things he had never done before, and he was like, I never knew my powers could do that, and he was like, and she was like, basically, you're lazy, you never tried.
Yeah, you're basic.
And I just remember that, like, that's just deep, you know. So something sinister about that. And then 5, I think Cannonball.
Cannonball?
Yeah, from
Alpha Flight?
No, from New Mutants.
From New Mutants. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Sam Guthrie. Like, right. I always thought that
he's a kid that would have the flames under his feet or some shit.
Yeah,
like he would
because
fly, right?
he basically, he basically was imperfect because it took him a long time to finally learn, like,
how to maneuver.
Right. But then once he did, it was just like, I just remember being gratified by following his progress,
So you're really about this reluctant hero thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's because now from a storytelling standpoint, yeah, although I also like Sunspot too. I mean, it basically would be a tie between Cannonball and Sunspot, because I thought that Sunspot's whole thing about, like, his dad being in the Hellfire Club, but at the same time he wants to be a hero. It's just kind of, Roberto DaCosta is kind of an interesting character. I don't know.
Top 5 MCs.
Oh, let's see. I gotta go. Rakim, Chris, Kane, LL, Cube.
That's a good list. That's a very good list.
And I know people are gonna be kind of surprised. Well, how come you didn't put Big?
Right.
Or how come you didn't put Tupac? Because I'm old enough to remember when they were out. And if you asked them for their top 5, they wouldn't have put themselves on that top 5.
Right.
That's true.
And the thing is that, like, I think in retrospect, now that they're legendary, of course they would be top 5. But because, I'm old enough to remember the evolution of Tupac as an MC. And I remember talking to Chris about how much he loved Rakim, and as well as Kane.
Right.
Like, I'm kind of going with the originator. You know, and Kane has always been a favorite for me.
Kane.
You know, because
Kane is in my top 5.
Well, because
Chris is in my top 5.
Well, I mean, Chris, you always have to give a top 5 because he's the only MC right now that could battle anybody and probably win. Still, because that's just where his head is at.
Yeah, definitely.
I think with Kane, I mean, he came up with 2 of my favorite metaphors of all time. You know, so full of action, it should be a verb.
Yep.
And kind of skeptical like a girl on a contraceptive. I mean, both those. Think about that. It's just genius.
And then, of course, Kane begat Jay-Z, of course.
Yeah. And then Rakim is just like, when you think about.
Rakim took a flat whirl and made it round.
Yeah. Records that he made in 86. Yeah. 86. You could play right now and just the elocution is just incredible. But then, I mean, it's the problem with these top 5 lists is that it's like categorization. I mean.
By period, by era.
By that, I mean, because perfect example, someone like Slick Rick. Slick Rick is as a storyteller. I see like Slick Rick and I see Notorious B.I.G.'s. They're novelists. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you look at, or even Jay-Z to a certain extent, when you look at their approach to storytelling, they're huge influences on me as a writer because it's like, how are you ever going to write a narrative that's as clean as Niggas Bleed?
Right.
Or as clean as I got a story to tell?
Right.
Or as clean as
You Must Love Me.
You know, somebody's got to die.
Right.
Or on Jay's level, like, you know, Meet the Parents.
Yes.
Or somebody's got, you know, it's like, you know, there's so many different ways you can go with that. You know, I always say that, like, when you look at what Richard Price did with Clockers in that novel, that's really the equivalent to that is what Biggie did with Ready to Die, what, you know, Jay-Z did with Reasonable Doubt, which is instead of taking 500 or 600 pages to do that, they did it with a couple of rhymes.
Right.
That gave that same perspective of the stress of the street level,
the urgency
of the street level drug dealer,
right.
And what that does to your psyche, and what that does to your insides. Back in the day, our parents used to take care of us. Look at them now; they even fucking scared of us. Yeah. One line defines an entire generation.
Yep.
Either you slang crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot.
Yep.
I mean, just think about the visuals of that. You know, man, Big was amazing, man.
Still.
Still.
Listen, man, good luck with Luke Cage. I don't think you need much because I think, you know, like I said, the anticipation is there.
I can always use luck. I can always use prayers. And
Yes, sir.
Both.
And I'll send you my praise. Do me a favor, please. This is personal. If there is a season 2, can I be an extra? Please, my dude. I want to be an extra.
I'll do you one better than that.
Yeah.
Do you want to be rescued by Luke or do you want to get punched out by him?
Rescue.
We'll talk about that. Let's talk about what? Let's talk about that, man. But thank you, man. Thank you for coming by the show. This has been a long time overdue, but I think this is the right time. You know what I'm saying? And,
thank you.
And congratulations, man.
No, thank you.
I think we're all like coming from the hip hop community, coming from, you know, the Source magazine and everything you've done there, coming from Notorious and seeing how you've really just, I don't know your story about how you transformed yourself into Hollywood, but just seeing you do it and in such a prominent position, man. I think we're all proud of you, man. So thank you.
Thank you. And of course, I'm, you know, just thinking about my evolution from a hip hop journalist to now, like, of course, I got to give a shout out to, you know, like Reggie Dennis and James Bernard and Rob Marriott, you know, and Rob Kenner, you know, because all of them were very, you know, inspirational to me and just helped me evolve as a writer, you know, and
without them, there wouldn't be this.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, of course, I got to shout Mimi Valdez as well.
Yes.
Because, you know, there's so many of us. I mean, it was like, just as writers, we all sharpened each other. And so many of the lessons I learned as an interviewer and just going through that to this day stick with me always.
Internets, Luke Cage, this Friday, September 30th, on Netflix. Don't miss it.
Yeah. Well,
if you miss it, unsubscribe. Don't fuck with us.
Yeah.
All right.
So on the East Coast, you know, 3 a.m. On the West Coast, midnight. If you're
we're getting it later.
Yeah, so you
so 3 a.m.
Yeah, 3 a.m. or midnight on the West Coast.
Well, there you go.
All 13 episodes.
All 13 episodes.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'll have to zoom through these 7. But you know, I tend to watch things slow. Like it took me at least 4 months to watch Daredevil.
Yeah.
Each series. But once again, man, congratulations and
Thank you.
And the best of luck.
Yes.
King, did you feel excluded in this conversation since it was very fan bro heavy?
Nah, I mean, I think I appreciate the visual side of the comic book era.
Yo,
in terms
shout out
of
to
the
Dante
movies.
Ross. Shout out to Gary Harris as well.
There you
You know
go.
what I'm saying? So, like Civil War, we was on the plane. I thought that was amazing. Crazy. You know, Captain America, obviously.
Yeah.
Jeff Chang.
Team captain or Team Iron Man?
Oh, I was all Team Cap until you got to that moment where Iron Man was like, "You killed my mom," and then I kind of understood where he was coming from.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that was what was so great about that movie, was that, like, you go in Team Cap and then there's this emotional moment where you understand where Iron Man's coming from.
I mean, I always understood. Like, even in the comic book, I understood
Yeah.
Tony's position, but I was always Team Cap.
Team Cap.
I-
And they didn't have to do Black Goliath like that. Like, he was the Christmas addicts of the Civil War, man. They didn't have to
Facts.
do him like that in the comic book, man.
That's true.
Listen,
That's true.
man, thanks again. Internets, man, you know what it is, man. Dream those dreams. Man up, woman up, and live those dreams, because a life without dreams is black and white, and the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. Luke Cage, September 30th, Netflix. We out.
Hashtag Luke Cage. Hashtag Sweet Christmas.
Hashtag Sweet Christmas.
Illuminati!
This episode of the Combat Jack Show was produced by Jonathan Mena, executive produced by A. King and Chris Morrow, engineered by Samir Karan, and recorded in the Engine Room Audio Studio in downtown Manhattan. This is an official Loudspeakers Networks production.
Yo, Combat, Stent from Charlotte, bro. Just want to give you niggas a call, man. I've been bullshitting, I'm calling. Until I thought about some shit my cousin said, which is, if you got a compliment for a nigga, you don't get the compliment to the nigga, you essentially don't want that nigga to flourish. And I don't want to be a hating ass nigga, so I'm calling to compliment you on a job well done with the show. Thank you, King, Morrow, Mena, all y'all niggas, man. I appreciate the women that you have on the show, helping me empower my daughter. Appreciate that shit. And just also want to tell you, man, what the fuck, man, hold up.